So the running back landscape has been pretty wild this season. We've had a bunch of injuries, rest in peace. J.K. Dobbins having a dope season this year. And some new faces, like I said at the top of the show, a bunch of new faces in the running back landscape. Christian McCaffrey, Old Faithful, is at the top of that list as the running back 1 so far. But looking at the running backs 2 and 3, they are actually teammates, and those are Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane of the Miami Dolphins. I do have to preface all of this by saying Devon Achane did go on IR this week. He's going to miss at least 4 weeks, but I do think he's going to come back into the fold after that. Conversely, we had Jeff Wilson activated, or his activation off the IR that gives him the 21-day period to be fully activated. That started this week as well. So Jeff Wilson's going to come in as reinforcements as Devon Achane kind of moves out. Vastly different players. Jeff Wilson is kind of that banger, a little bit of sneaky receiving upside for sure. Not the electric spark plug that Devon Achane is, so don't expect any Achane production coming out of Jeff Wilson, but I think it can be good. And so I'm still going to break this stuff down because I think some of these things can be translated to Jeff Wilson as well as to when Devon Achane returns from that injury. Huge bummer that he got hurt, though. He was doing some otherworldly things as that rookie running back coming in, and we loved seeing it. But not the case for the next at least 4 weeks with him going to injured reserve. But looking at it, Raheem Mostert is the running back 2. Devon Achane is the running back 3 at this point in the season. Achane, he's producing a little bit more as a runner, and Mostert is taking a little bit more of the passing pie. He does have a bunch more snaps from those first 2 games of the season. What we got to ask ourselves with this production is it sustainable? And the first thing I'm looking at there is volume, and let me tell you, it looks pretty good. Over the last 3 games, since Devon Achane was inserted as a big piece of this offense, Achane is the running back 1 over those 3 weeks. He's only averaging 12 carries and 3 targets a game. Raheem Mostert, the running back 3 in that 3-week span, is only averaging 10 carries and about 4 to 5 targets per game. So that isn't crazy volume to where they can't continue, especially on the rushing end of things. 22 carries between the 2 of them, 100% doable when they're both healthy and in the game. And then 7 to 8 targets between the 2 of them. How is that not doable either? I think it definitely could be sustainable as far as the volume, but the efficiency, I'm really not so sure. I don't think it's out of the question necessarily, but the clip that they have been producing at has been something to behold. Both of them are scoring touchdowns on over 12% of their rush attempts right now. No other running back is over 8% with at least 30 carries. And Achane's going for 15 plus yards on almost 1 in every 5 carries that he has had this season. So that definitely wasn't going to maintain. Defenses were going to get smart to this, figure out ways to defend it and contain it a little bit. And we did see Raheem Mostert cool off a little bit from his week 3 explosion over the past couple weeks. Achane, with that injury, he obviously has a mandatory cool off period here. But I think even if he was healthy, he probably would have cooled down a little bit. But again, he might just be that fantasy unicorn. You never know, right? It's hard to plant your flag and say he's going to be a fantasy unicorn, which is why I hedge saying that he probably was going to cool off a little bit, but you never know. Could have just been the freaking unicorn. Either way, almost everything points to a high efficiency running back room being sustainable no matter who is there. Definitely the ceiling is higher when Achane is second to Mostert as opposed to Jeff Wilson being second to Mostert. But I think what they've been doing right now has been crazy. I actually went back 10 years to see if any running back duo has finished inside the top 5. The closest thing I could find was in 2017 when Alvin Kamara finished as the running back 3 and Mark Ingram finished as the running back 6. But we were about to see some stuff that we have not really seen before out of these guys. So sucks that Achane got hurt. If I was choosing one at health, it would have been Achane. Obviously, right now you go with Raheem Mostert. But in a vacuum, in isolation of the injury, I would be choosing Achane just because Mostert's older, has that long injury history. And Achane just feels like he could be the guy who keeps that big play consistency going over that elder Raheem the Dream Mostert. So that's where I'm sitting on the Dolphins. You just want pieces of these guys. I've said it all season, basically. If you can get yourself pieces of this offense, aside from maybe like Robbie Chosen, you are getting pieces of this offense. And that includes Chase Claypool. Please go check out that video I watched last week about the trade reaction. I think Chase Claypool could be sneaky involved in this offense when he gets acclimated. The running backs 5 and 6 respectively are Kyren Williams and Zach Moss, and I think these two guys are glaring sells for us right now in fantasy football. I would absolutely be putting these guys out on the trade block, adding them to packages to upgrade positions 100%. And we're going to start with Kyren Williams on that front. The running back 5 on the season, running back 11 on a points per game basis. Looks great. He is getting the highest snap percentage of any running back league-wide. Top 12 in share of his team carries, top 12 in target percentage among running backs, all that jazz. Totally get it. But if you dig deeper, his production has been pretty touchdown dependent, and his efficiency as a runner is just not good. In the 2 games where Kyren Williams hasn't scored a touchdown, he's only averaging 8.1 PPR points per game. He scored 2 touchdowns in each of the other 3 games, and I don't think that's going to sustain. In fact, over 40% of Kyren Williams' fantasy points scored this season have come via touchdowns. And I mean, if you just look at it, 7 touchdowns in the first 5 games, multiple games with multiple touchdowns, not going to happen anymore. As far as efficiency, he doesn't crack the top 25 in yards per carry, explosive run rate, missed tackles forced. So not making big plays, not making guys miss. He's only had more than 53 rushing yards in 1 game. So I think that running back 5 kind of ranking is a little bit misleading as far as how he's been as a running back. Looking at the game where he did go over 53 rushing yards, he needed 25 carries in that game to hit 103 rushing yards. And I don't know if he's ever going to hit another 25 carry game this season. So I am hard selling Kyren Williams. Target share, obviously it's great right now, but I think it gets propped up a little bit by the 17 targets he got between weeks 2 and 3. He's only had 5 targets in the 2 games since, and I think that would be the norm, especially with Cooper Kupp returning versus the 17 that he got in that 2-game span earlier in the season. So sell your Kyren Williams shares while you can. Another factor here, just from a philosophical lens, is looking at this offense and the team's surprising performance so far. Cooper Kupp back with a vengeance in week 5. Puka Nacua, he is now a foundational piece and a mega difference maker on this team. And I think the Rams, with them potentially being in the hunt for a wild card spot, looking at their offense, Kyren Williams to me is definitely the weak link on that offense. If that inefficiency continues, I don't think the Rams are going to be shy to bolster that running back spot. Don't forget, for a couple years, it was basically their move to make high-profile midseason acquisitions, and look out on the running back landscape. Leonard Fournette is a free agent. You never know what they could do out on the trade block. I would love to see Michael Carter go to a new place because he's getting lots of snaps that have been hampering Breece Hall in New York, and I think he could go somewhere and make a difference because he is a pretty electric little running back out in New York. So I don't really see Kyren's efficiency increasing. The volume can only get lower. I will say I do have to ride him in one of my home leagues, but I'm going to put some feelers out there as soon as after this podcast is recorded. And I would have to be getting a productive running back in this injury-riddled landscape when I'm selling Kyren Williams. So that's the caveat I'll put on that trade or sell Kyren Williams, is that if you're not getting a solid producing running back in that trade, I'd probably sit tight because the running back landscape is pretty sparse right now. As far as guys I might be looking to acquire if I'm trading Kyren Williams, I'd be looking at guys like James Cook, Rashad White, Jahmyr Gibbs, guys who haven't really seen their full potential just yet. Maybe you even try to upgrade him to a guy like Tony Pollard, but I think Tony Pollard might have some of his own issues, and we'll cover that in a different episode. But yeah, you definitely are going to see what you can get for Kyren Williams, because I feel like his position as this all-world volume awesome producer is pretty fickle at best. And Zach Moss, I'm not going to dump on the guy. I think selling him is just due to Jonathan Taylor's return. It's nothing to do with what he's done, because he's immensely overachieved so far this year versus what we expected coming in. He was given that top spot with Jonathan Taylor going on the PUP. So kudos to him, really. I think he probably earned himself some timeshare work in 2024 on a different team. Definitely going to be curious to see how long Moss continues being involved in the Colts offense this season with Jonathan Taylor coming back. I think there could be maybe a couple weeks of value left in him, but I don't think it's going to be much once JT gets situated. So I think selling Zach Moss off that week 5 is the right move. And, just be happy that it happened. Don't be sad that it's gone, right? A couple more quick touches at the running back position. We've got Bijan Robinson and Breece Hall. I don't think either of these guys has really scratched the surface just yet. Bijan still has Tyler Algier being used way too much. Tyler Algier has double the goal line carries that Bijan Robinson does, and that is a fucking problem, Arthur Smith. Then you look at Breece Hall, and he just kind of got the kid gloves taken off in week 5, got the lion's share of the work, but he's still contending with Dalvin Cook and Michael Carter a little bit. So I don't think he's seen all of the pie like he will at some point. So Bijan and Breece Hall, keep riding these guys. If you can trade for Breece Hall because he's not in the top 10 as Bijan is, I would be going out and trying to trade for Breece Hall. Tough to do after that week 5 performance, but give her a whirl. Maybe Kyron Williams is a part of that package to get Breece Hall. And then to look at a couple other guys who have been kind of in the top 12 running back ranks in the past. Derrick Henry and Joe Mixon are sitting just wide at running back 14 and running back 16 respectively. Josh Jacobs, off that big target performance in week 5, snuck into the top 12 as the running back 10. And looking at Jacobs, obviously, I think he's the most likely to continue this production, averaging almost 7 targets per game over the past 3 games, with the Raiders basically only targeting himself, Devontae Adams, and Jacoby Myers. I actually looked into it, and those 3 players make up over 75% of the Raiders' targets so far this season. So I think Jacobs' production as a pass catcher is going to sustain, and I think his production as a runner will increase as the season moves along. So no issue, no worries there for Josh Jacobs. Derrick Henry, bit of a different story. He's fading fast for me. He's only got 56% of the team snaps this season. Rookie Tyjae Spears has 50% of his own snaps this year. We know that Derrick Henry isn't going to be seeing whatever passing game work is available for Tennessee running backs. And with their defense being one of the worst against the pass, I don't think they're really going to be getting into game scripts where he can carry the ball 20 plus times, get that rhythm, get multiple touchdowns. I just don't think that's going to happen. He's only got 2 games where he's carried the ball 20 plus times. Coincidentally, both were Titans wins, but we're just not seeing as many chunk plays. Only 2 games have we seen him go over 75 rushing yards. And I think we really just need to reset those expectations for Derrick Henry as soon as possible. Decent running back too, I will give him that, but not one you're super hyped about seeing in your lineup. Even as the running back 2 on your team, it feels a little bit dicey with him in there because he could put up some of those dud performances. So Derrick Henry is somebody I am very concerned about. I could see him starting to fade back even a little bit more with the lack of passing game work and Tyjae Spears continuing to take on snaps.